Good morning, everyone. You are all very welcome on this very blustery morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Clara, and I am delighted to be hosting today's webinar on ways to empower your workforce and yourself through upskilling. Now, the good news is there's lots of supports that are funded and programs available to you today. And we're going to learn more about how businesses like yourselves are able to access those. Before we get started, I just want to let you know about our DLR West Business Association. So if you're not already a member, this is really a great month to join. We have some really exciting initiatives coming up over the next few weeks, and I would encourage you all to consider joining. If you want to scan the QR code on the screen, you can access more information on how to join. We've also launched a referral scheme. So once you're a member, you can refer other members to join and win a little voucher for Nutgrove Shopping Centre. Okay, but for now, let's get into today's session and learn more about the opportunities available to support your business. We're delighted to welcome Natasha Kinsella, Regional Skills Manager for Dublin. It's a national initiative of the Department of Further Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science. Natasha has over 25 years experience, and she, like myself, is a very strong advocate for lifelong learning. So, Natasha, welcome.
Thanks, Clara. Delighted to be here this morning, and thanks to Lauren also for arranging this webinar. Okay, so will I just get started, I suppose, in terms of introducing the Regional Skills Forum network and how, as Clara said, we're here as a conduit to help employers, in particular, I suppose, navigate Ireland's education and training system, because we know sometimes it's a complex system to try and navigate, and you're busy running your business. While I will present some slides to you, just to remind you that obviously feel free, if you have any questions as I go throughout the slides, to maybe put something in the chat box. And between myself and Clara, we're going to endeavour to answer any questions or certainly any comments or clarity you might need throughout the session today. And if not today, and you want to link in further individually, that's no problem at all. The slides will be shared by, and certainly feel free to connect in with me at any stage. So the Regional Skills for a little bit of context in terms of it being established at this stage, we're actually in our 10th year anniversary, and it is an initiative of the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Science and Innovation, a long acronym. We're very conscious about not using terminologies of acronyms so that people understand where they're coming from. But essentially, our role is about strengthening the collaboration between enterprise and the education training system. But across the country, there are 9 regional skills forum managers, and each work within their region to support business in firstly identifying what the skills needs are, and then obviously accessing the opportunities of solutions to meet those skills needs. My role as the manager of Dublin Regional Skills Forum is to support the companies across the wider Dublin landscape, which we know is quite vast. It's 30% of the overall national employment figure, and we've over 130,000 businesses in Dublin. So ultimately, our aim is simple: to ensure that business can access and navigate the skills system, but obviously to support the evolving ecosystem that exists when the company is either growing or essentially remaining competitive as well. So who we are, a little bit of context. We are impartial, and that's a key element to kind of identify. Our role, obviously, as I said, is navigating you through the ecosystem that exists. But it's a one-to-one free service available to you. Regardless of size or sector, we don't close the door on any business, but our prominence is particularly to support SMEs. And that helps you, I suppose, with workforce development in terms of articulating what maybe your business problem and skills, critical skills needs are, and then connecting you in with the system, whereby there's training that is either subsidized or fully funded to help reduce the cost of workforce development. So we work very closely with the employers, the educational providers, and other enterprise state agencies within the region. So as I said, it is a national structure, and equally as a national structure, we share those insights of critical skills needs that are coming through based on our engagement. And what that helps us to do is identify the national emerging skills needs, but obviously then on the back of that, feeding back to the department, inform policy and funding decisions that are government led. And that makes sure that the system is responsive to the skills needs at real practical terms based on you, the business, what you actually need from us and the system. So how do we do it? What do we do is key. I promise there is no form filling with regional skills. We don't actually require any form filling or any process or registration. It's basically starting the conversation through engaging with us to analyze what it is within your company your skills needs possibly are at a granular level. So we look at, I suppose, each of the occupational roles that you have in the business, and we identify with you in that conversation, maybe based on each occupational role, what maybe gaps might lie in terms of the skills needs. That could be future talent pipelines, but it also could mean, well, you have employees currently working with you who need to progress and develop their own career pathway, which supports retention, that we identify maybe what are the critical areas to get them to the next position they're trying to get to, and connect you with the solutions that might be there within the system. But where gaps might exist, obviously, that's a key for us to know, well, if the system hasn't a solution for you, how can we develop one based on the needs within either the region or nationally to connect and make sure that the system is responsive to those needs? That means we align the training provision with your real business needs and ensuring the courses actually reflect what the employers require. And that allows an opportunity where you can inform and actually co-design potentially provision based on your specific needs. The fourth thing then we obviously do, as I said, is inform national policy. And this is quite important on the basis that if you don't already know it, for those businesses on the call, you actually pay into what's called the National Training Fund. And that's a tax based on your employee base. And that money actually funds most of the provisions I'm going to identify a little later on in the webinar. So we want to make sure you're tapping into that because you're availing back of what you're actually paying into. So those provisions are there for you, but very often what we find through our engagement is not a lot of companies know they actually exist and where to start and who to connect with. So that's where finally we support companies, directly helping them understand and navigate what's available within the system. So in practice, it often begins with that simple conversation. And the story generally I start with is, look, what is the business problem you're trying to solve? Rather than, for example, we need to upskill in AI. So what's the course I need to do? That may not be just the solution. It might not just be a course right now. It could be other supports that the system can facilitate you in. But at some stage, certainly you may want to look at employees or indeed yourself as the owner and manager of the business. Because we can't forget very often with my L&D background hat here, I say, look, we tend to focus on all the employees within the company, but what about ourselves? We need to constantly upskill ourselves because the world of work is evolving and changing. And even in terms of our leadership approaches, how we actually integrate with a team, remote working, all those things are giving various different competencies and skills that ensures obviously we can deal and adjust as the workforce adjusts. So then policy alignment, as I mentioned before, it is quite important. Our work obviously sits within the wider national framework focused on skills, productivity and competitiveness, focused towards you, the business. Ireland's economic strategy increasingly recognises that skills development is central to economic growth and business reliance. And it's through the regional skills fora, government policy can remain closely aligned with real world employer needs, ensuring that the training investment that you're actually paying into deliver maximum impact and return for you. So this connection between various different policies that are identified on the screen there is about enterprise and education. And it's one of the key strengths, I suppose, that we hold as that impartial conduit. So if you come to us, it's not a case where we'll look at the whole system and come up with several potential solutions, but the company can decide which solution might best suit at a time, a place, and for those individuals that you need it when you need it most. So what's important is those funding priorities are based obviously on you, the business, and the National Training Fund is diverted to focus on where you need it most. Then I'll move on to maybe the skills SME guide. As I said at the start, we do recognise for every business, particularly SMEs, it's very difficult sometimes to navigate the skills ecosystem. So what we've done in Dublin is develop an SME skills guide. And that's a practical tool for you, which is highlighted on the screen here. Now, there is a link to the guide, so you can view that link after the webinar. But what it tries to do, almost like a triage tool, it poses questions to start to get you to think about what is it that the business needs? Is it focused on maybe acquiring talent and future pipelines? Or is it looking at your current employee base and upskilling? And it poses particular questions to get you to start thinking about, well, what is it that you particularly need at a point in time? And then obviously we respond with the potential solutions to connect you to that. The guide was created in response to that feedback from a lot of businesses we've been engaging with. And we do have the privilege in Dublin, where I have 7 higher ed education institutes, 2 large-scale education and training boards, SkillNet offerings, and 4 local enterprise offices, as well as all the other state agencies such as IDA and Enterprise Ireland. And we engage with the likes of the Dublin Chambers. Certainly, I'm here today with Bridge Enterprise Centre. Those are the kind of collaborations that we do to try and further the reach in terms of the employee base that's in Dublin. So the SME Skills Guide essentially acts as your entry point, but it doesn't end with just that skills guide. It allows you to connect in then with me as you journey through the development of upskilling, reskilling, and the growth in the business and what supports might be available to you. But what it is about, and the next piece, is building those blocks for workforce development. Because what we do is recognise every business is at a different point of that journey. So where, for example, some companies might want quick hits, immediate quick wins versus more strategic transformational digitalization journey that might build those workforce development blocks as you go through those journeys. So at each point, as the slide demonstrates, you're building those blocks. There are supports at each stage of that journey throughout to help you guide along. And not forgetting, I've also mentioned what we call RPL. That's recognition of prior learning. And that allows individuals maybe within your organization who have a lot of experience as well as life experience, but they may not necessarily gain entry point in some qualification courses, that we look at the basis of their experience and accredit it on the basis of their experience to then gain entry to certain upskilling routes and pathways to help them progress within their career path within your business. We recognize, as I say, it's very different, that journey, but together these options provide, I suppose, every business along that pathway more flexible and affordable pathways for workforce development. Because equally, that's one of the challenges for SMEs. You're busy running your business, and for somebody to be signing up for either full-time or a year or 2 years, it can be quite difficult to manage and work-life balance between the day job, our life commitments, our family commitments, and other things. So you'll find some of the examples I'm now going to illustrate actually provides those opportunities where you can do it at your own pace, at your own time, even at home and online. So a lot of the provisions now certainly are either predominantly online or certainly blended to offer that flexible building blocks of micro credentials or micro qualifications. So what I'm going to do is maybe what good looks like, if that means something for you today to go away with. As its best, the engagement of the Regional Skills Fora begins, as I said, with that simple conversation. We do a skills audit, and that is a free consultation for you to work through those identified gaps, understand the business goals, and then map out the relevant training supports that we offer. So from there, we then connect you, but equally, it allows us to tailor training solutions based on your specific need. So some of the examples now, the first one there is micro credentials. This is offered actually through higher education, the universities. And as you can see, even on the list on the screen, there's quite a substantial amount. There's hundreds of offerings through micro credentials. And this has been in existence now for the last 5 years. There are some subsidy fundings available, and obviously a lot of the courses, as the needs are identified, are then developed to meet even further needs through our engagement. So if there's something that is not there, that certainly you're looking for, that's the opportunity to engage with us, that we can then connect in with the right university to say, look, this is a particular need based on demand. Can they develop something to specifically tailor that need that you're looking for? The next, I suppose, area is micro qualifications. And again, this is designed by Further Education and Solace, our partners, who we partner with all of the 16 educational and training boards around the country. Micro qualifications have been a huge instrument, I suppose, for a business over the last number of years since we've seen the development in terms of real deliverables based on industry needs. So every one of the micro qualifications was developed specifically through engagement with business and some of our state agencies and other business representation groups. Regional Skills would have sat on each of these cohorts of areas. So you'll see on the slide deck there, areas that we know are mega trends at the moment that businesses are actually facing. Things like digital sustainability, there are obviously leadership skills as well, but in particular, artificial intelligence. Only in the last couple of weeks, a full suite of AI micro qualifications have been launched. So this is quite important. based on what we're seeing through our engagement that businesses are needing right now. These are quick hits of deliverables, accredited, so quality assured, and we've piloted to make sure that the skills and competencies match what the business is looking for as an outcome of doing these courses. And it's to remind people, I suppose, from further education, look, a lot of individuals may well have gone through higher education where they'd have a primary degree, but it's at this point possibly that they're looking for a quick hit where they need a specialist area, like, for example, AI. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go back and do a full master's in artificial intelligence. And this is where further education, that whole opportunity, as Clara mentioned, lifelong learning. The journey is not a straight line, it's cyclical. So you could be engaging with higher education versus further education at any point within your life cycle, and that's quite important. So then the other example I'm going to give is e-college. And this again is another great opportunity, even for you as the business, where you don't necessarily have the time as the manager or owner to navigate the system. You can send the link of e-college to your employees. They can register direct, all the courses. And when I say the word free, I don't like saying the word free because technically these are funded, as I mentioned, through the National Training Fund, but there is no cost to either you, the business, or any individual within your business who registers for these courses. They're all online, and it is given by tutored support online, so individuals can sign up and work through these courses at the time that suits them to do it. So they're just some of the provisions in terms of those quick hit, more flexible style approaches that we know businesses, particularly SMEs, are looking for right now. But I wanted to just identify in particular, the next slide is Intrio Services. We actually, as part of our fora, engage with other government departments as well. One of those departments is the Intrio Services, because we recognise, and again, you know, given the challenges around the talent war and a lot of small businesses challenged trying to recruit individuals in, while we don't get involved in the recruitment basis, we certainly connect you into services that exist. One of those services is obviously the Intrio Services. And you might think, look, you know, we're at full employment or almost full employment. You know, if individuals are on, you know, long-term unemployed, you could have positions that actually, through financial supports that the Department of Social Protection and Intrio Services offer, you could recruit individuals off long term, but also there are financial supports for individuals maybe from other diverse backgrounds, individuals with intellectual disabilities or any kind of disabilities. They also offer work placement to individuals, and they have other financial supports as well as the recruitment services to help you along that journey. And that's quite important to tap into all the other services that exist. Hence, the connection with us can maybe guide you in those. Even when we look at the education and training boards and higher education, they all do internships, graduateships, placements opportunities. Those are other elements of tapping in to the wider services that we can engage and support you on. Okay, so what's the outcome from today? If your organization is interested in exploring maybe some of the suggested pathways that I've identified as part of the presentation, certainly we'd say, look, reach out, book the free company skills consultation. You can certainly visit us at gov.ie Dublin Regional Skills, and certainly we cover all aspects, as I said, any business, any side of any sector, you can contact me directly, and I'd be very happy to engage individually to explore how maybe all those supports you can tap into in terms of supporting your business with workforce development. So on that basis, Clara, I think I'll finish there to maybe allow some interaction or questions, certainly, from some of the companies on the call, or indeed yourself. So I'm happy to take anything at this stage.
Thank you, Natasha. Yeah, so some questions have come in. I know we've been working with some financial institutions, and they've found they've had to pivot very quickly to adapt to the current marketplace and upskill in areas such as video upskilling, so getting some of their staff to go on socials and do a bit more recording. We found people that might be in cafes and restaurants, and they've had to pivot into areas such as technology if they've got no new point of sales. Recently, we've had a company who have gone through a sustainability audit, and now they have a whole new set of controls and processes in place. So instead of making coffee every day, they're checking their water intake and their heating and their sustainability measures. So can you tell us a little bit about the offerings that are available, maybe to people that are completely outside of their normal day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean, there's a vast array, like I say, and everything you've mentioned, Clara, there's something in the system. Very often, what I find through our engagement, because the companies don't really know where to start, or maybe sometimes they have an idea almost exactly like you say, they need to do something in the digital space or AI space or processes, but they won't necessarily have a course title. You don't need a course title. This is the whole point. It's to try and navigate the system through the connection with us, to maybe say, well, look, you won't find it if you're trying to look for it potentially yourself. Because if you didn't have a course title, you'll start Google searching, put in the course title, you might find something. But when you actually go into some of the areas of the courses, you find, well, what are the skills as the outcome of this course going to deliver for my employees? So you want to be able to talk that through before you sign yourself or an employee up to a course, so that you can see and at least establish what's going to be the real impact based on that course if I do it back to the business. Is it going to give me the skill and competency to be able to do that as part of my day job? And I think that's where we have that conversation with businesses. But a lot of the, I suppose, provisions now, they are based on skill competencies, given that most of the businesses have actually inputted in to the design of these courses. So rather than going out to and paying, for example, a consultant to say, look, we can come in and we can advise you about this and the other, the first step I'd say is, look, have the conversation with us to firstly see, is there solutions within the state system already? And because what I've said in Dublin, there's an oversupply of the provisions. It's about making sure you're tapping into the ones that actually exist. And most of the time through my engagement, they actually do exist. There's very few gaps within the system. It mightn't require a particular program to be completely designed from scratch. It could be tweaking modules of programs that might suit you based on some of the needs that you identified there, Clara, as well.
And what are you finding is the biggest skill gap in the market at the moment in Dublin, particularly?
Yeah, I think very much. I mean, those mega trends we've both mentioned, sustainability, green, that twin transition, certainly AI, artificial intelligence, but it's not about, as I said, in AI, it's actually the fundamentals of the tools and how I can use the tools to benefit the business rather than having to do a master's in artificial intelligence. Because let's be honest, it's changing overnight. So you could upskill in something today and in a month's time it's already out of date. So it's those quick hits of provisions to understand maybe tools that are out there to facilitate. But the other big thing that we've certainly seen since COVID times, because of the work environment and how the work environment has changed, is actually leading teams, leadership skills, because people are working remote. Managing the remote piece is actually one of the core fundamentals of the new world of work. And we're seeing leadership skills and transversal skills, how to adjust within that work mode, and that new world of work are certainly coming through more often than not in those skills needs rather than technical skill sets.
We have a question in here which kind of touches on that point. It says we're a SME of 8 people. We all work remotely in different countries. So must all the 8 people go to various training bodies locally where they're based, or should they be based within where the office is, let's say?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'm glad somebody's posed it. One thing just to clarify, because all of the provisions are funded by that National Training Fund, which is within the Government of Ireland and submitted by our department and through the various state agencies such as Solus, Higher Education Authority, you have to be living and working in Ireland to avail of the funding. I mean, we do have companies who work remote, and obviously there are individuals in some of those companies who are abroad. You know, to avail of the likes of e-college, you have to be working and living in Ireland to actually be eligible for doing and completing those courses. But that's not to say where some client companies, let's say if a bespoke provision is done to facilitate some of the employees that are living and working in Ireland, it doesn't mean to say that some of that provision, you know, if the individuals were over at the time it was facilitated in-house, it might well mean, but that's not a decision I can make because it is National Training Fund money funded. The majority of time for eligibility, they have to be living and working in Ireland.
It's absolutely fair. And I'm sure there's localized resources available to those that are
Exactly.
in those countries. We have another question in. It says there seems to be multiple sources of training. Is there a central source and a list of courses that we can review in order to see what will be available to our team?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have to say, 10 years on, Clara, the very first couple of years, that's exactly the question I was asked for every company. The first question was, can I get a list of courses? You'd be mind boggled with the amount of courses that actually exist, and no list will ever be updated as quickly as you're looking at the list. So there are particular, I suppose, for the likes of micro credentials, there is a dedicated portal for micro credentials. It's microcreds.ie. Now that is very much updated as it's a central portal. The likes of eCollege, it's dedicated to eCollege and it is updated. Okay. What I'd say to you though is it's that old cliche of one-stop shop portal, but there's lots of portals. And that's the point I'm trying to make. If you're looking and trying to find and navigate the lots of one-stop shop portals, you'll probably find yourself an hour or two in and you still probably won't find what you're looking for. Hence, I'm encouraging you to say, look, regional skills is the one point of contact. It kind of alleviates out that kind of search piece, that the question isn't what course and what list. The question is, look, what is the business problem? What's the skills need? And then we will direct you to maybe suggested solutions based on that need. Because if you get a list, you'll then have to go into every single course, look at the, I suppose, competencies, the skills, the outcomes, and it could be hours later, which we recognize, particularly for SMEs, as I said, you don't have the time to navigate that. So that's where we do help you do that.
You mentioned earlier the skills audit, so that could be a
Yeah.
really good first stop place to go to get that audit in place.
Exactly. Yeah. And it, like I say, it's a conversation and there's no form filling or anything like that. And it could be you engage because you've immediate wins right now that you want to facilitate. But like I have companies for the last 10 years who dip in and out. Something might arise because of a particular need. They'd email me and say, look, is there any particular courses in this area? And that's absolutely fine. It doesn't just stop because we've done a skills audit today, let's say, and then in 6 months you have another need. We recognize the business is going to evolve over time. Needs change as the business evolves and grows. So certainly as each of those and new courses come up as well, or other courses that you mightn't have the opportunity to engage with, or equally more funding elements of courses come out that you have the opportunity to engage. But what I would say, Clara, as well, while we do the skills audit, I do an e-zine that actually goes out twice in the month. And that allows kind of quick hits in the inbox to say, it triggers maybe a notion for a business leader to say, actually, you know what? That's triggered something in the mindset. We need that now. I might engage with Natasha because I saw something on the e-zine. That company mightn't have necessarily touched base with me 3 months, 6 months, but it means you're dipping in and out of the system at a point that you need to dip in and out of the system. That's what we're here for.
I think you touched on something that was really interesting there. Again, it's the management sometimes are the ones that need to upskill. And I think there's a lot of courses out there that can help you manage teams, can help with conflict negotiation, that can help with all these areas that managers are having to deal with on a daily basis and they're maybe struggling and maybe doing their best. But actually having that formal education can really help them navigate teams and growth and different challenges that businesses face when they're an SME.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that, it mightn't in the first instance, what we find with a leadership team as well, it mightn't even be about doing a course. It actually might be tapping into mentors and an opportunity where other businesses are facing similar challenges. Like I mentioned, even the skill net provision, and one that comes to mind in particular is what's called Mentors Works. That's for SMEs on the basis of availing of a free opportunity to link in with these mentors. But local enterprise offices also have a network of mentors. So it could be workshops, it could be bespoke consultations with state funded consultants through these agencies that help you along that journey. And the end result then might be the leadership team doing a course.
And will there be any limitations on the number of support or grants that a certain business can avail of at the same time?
Not necessarily. I mean, in my 10 years, there is what's called, and this is where the financial controllers are well briefed on de minimis type funding, where if, for example, a company, but we find SMEs don't even cap de minimis type funding, where if you're availing of state agency funding, either through other state agencies or certainly through training and upskilling, that if there's a certain cap on that funding and you go over that cap, there might be some kind of cap on what you can avail of within a given year. But in the 10 years, in all honesty, Clara, most of the SMEs, they won't even reach anywhere near it.
Right. Well, I think we don't have too much more questions coming in, but Natasha, I think it's a good segue to say that you will be available afterwards. If people do have questions that they might think of, they can go home and speak to the team, and maybe there's some other elements they haven't had a chance to ask yet. It might be a good idea to get in touch with you afterwards and maybe pose some of those questions to you afterwards.
Yeah, I do see, Clara, just in the chat box there as well, rather than is it in the Q&A? One asked about, I've already done one e-college course, can I do multiple? Yes is the answer. There's eligibility criteria based on the e-college courses, but I mean, I know a lot of individuals, there's thousands have gone through e-college over the last number of years, and in particular different areas. So absolutely go on and look at the eligibility, but there's no reason why multiple courses can't be done.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Natasha. We've learned a huge amount, and I think it's a no-brainer for businesses to look internally and see how can we upskill, how can we increase staff retention, how can we be more competitive in the marketplace and take advantage of these because, like you said, they're free, they're available. It may not affect the day-to-day if there's online and evening courses available to the team. So I think it's a really good place to start to improve your business. And before everyone logs off, just a quick reminder on some of the upcoming events that we have with the Bridge Enterprise Centre and also the DLR West Business Association. So we've got areas of email marketing, submitting public tenders, your brand as a and how to reward staff. And I think even speaking to Natasha today, I would see, investing your staff as a way to reward them if they want to improve in a certain area of their business and become a better skilled staff member. That's a really good place to start. And then just another reminder to join the DLR West Business Association. You can scan that QR code today to join. Any questions at all on anything that was covered today, we'll follow up with an email and you can get in touch with me directly, or we'll share the PowerPoint presentation so you can reach out to Natasha as well. So I think we might leave it there, give people back a few more minutes of their morning to grab a cup of coffee and have a think about what they've learned today. But I really appreciate your time, Natasha, and all our attendees today. Thank you very much.
Delighted. Thanks, Clara.